So Vivo is back in action. It's just launched its most premium flagship smartphone to date, the X80 Pro. There will be no Pro Plus. This is their top end model. And this packs in a host of upgrades over previous X series models, including a bigger battery with faster charge, and you're now powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 with lots of great gaming features packed in there too. And that Zeiss branded camera tech has been boosted as well with some fresh hardware and the all new V1 Plus imaging chip. So far, so very arousing, but let's whip the Vivo X80 Pro out of its box, take you on a full-on tour to see what we're really dealing with here. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So first up, as always, what do you get in that rather fetching box? Well, there is one Vivo X80 smartphone, bit of 80-watt flash charge adapter action. It's pretty bloody big, but I have seen bigger. Got your Type-C USB cable. And Vivo has even chucked in a pair of branded earphones along with bonus rubbery tips. And yes, these are Type-C earphones, so that gives you a massive clue as to whether there's a headphone jack. And last up, you've got to step up from the usual protective condom case. It's actually more of a hard shell cover for the Vivo X80 Pro. Looks pretty smart when it's slapped on there, doesn't add much in the way of girth, just a bit of extra protection for the edges. And there you have it, nice and easy. That is your bally lot. So let's start with the look and feel of the Vivo X80 Pro. And certainly Vivo hasn't changed up its design language much at all compared with previous flagships. The X80 Pro comes in one colour and one colour only, and that's this rather austere cosmic black model. Might not be the most punchy, vibrant finish in the world ever, but it is very smart and sleek. Certainly fitting for a flagship smartphone, and I do love the matte finish that Vivo chucks on all of its phones as well, because they are highly resistant to grubby finger grease and other nasty muck. The construction is mostly glass. You do have a metal frame running along the edge of the Vivo X80 Pro as well. And apparently Vivo has chucked in ceramics, I believe, in the camera housing. Just an extra rugged finish just to help prevent any scratching and other issues. And this is a near 6.8-inch smartphone, and it weighs in at 219 grams, so it could be quite cumbersome to clutch for an extended period. Certainly got a good heft to it. Although thankfully none of that flat edge nonsense. It's quite a skinny smartphone, curved edges and corners as well, so a pleasing hand feel. However, sadly no IP rating for the VX80 Pro. It's usually something reserved for Pro Plus models, although apparently there will be no Pro Plus model for the X80, according to Vivo. Like a lot of other flagship smartphones, that display just curves ever so gently around the edges of the phone, and as originally expected, no headphone jack to speak of. Now, packed onto the Vivo X80 is full-on Android 12, as you'd expect from a 2022 flagship smartphone, complete with a hilariously titled FunTouch OS 12 slapped there on top. And while Vivo did tell me the X80 Pro would be supported with OS and security upgrades going forward, they didn't actually tell me exactly how many years they would be supporting it for. Hopefully more than just your bog standard 1 or 2. And overall, I do quite like the FunTouch OS experience. It's got a reasonably stock Android vibes. You've got the likes of the Discover feed still on there. You've got your apps tray, but you will need to do a few little tweaks, bit of customization to get it just right. Like for instance, by default, for some reason here in the apps tray, you got the dog background and also dog text, so you can't actually read it. Very helpful. Fortunately, you can completely personalize the X80 Pro as usual with Vivo smartphones, right down to the likes of the fingerprint animations that play out, and even the charging animation as well. And FunTouch, being fun and all, adds in some other extra bonus bits, including the Ultra Game mode, which I'll definitely be testing out when I get my Genshin Impact on the go. You've got the usual great Android privacy features chucked on here, and as far as the security goes, no complaints there. It's an ultrasonic in-display fingerprint sensor, took mere seconds to set up and seems absolutely flawless everyday performance. The X80 Pro actually takes a 3D image of your fingerprint just to improve the accuracy of it, and even when your finger's a bit moist, no worries whatsoever. The unlock action, perfect. You've also got support for a bit of face unlock as well, and as for the storage, well, you've got 256 gigs packed on here, UFS 3.1 of course, so nice and speedy too. Unfortunately, however, that ain't expandable via micro SD, as you've only got space for 2 SIMs in that tray. One of my only complaints with Vivo smartphones as far as the software side of things goes is you do get a lot of crapware pre-installed on this thing. It's a pretty standard affair with Chinese smartphones. Lots of bollocks like TikTok and LinkedIn and everything crammed on there. And then options to download even more and fill up your storage even faster. Fortunately, most of this stuff can be straight up uninstalled nice and easy. It'll just take you a little while because there's quite a bit of it. I gotta say though, you gotta be a bit of a misery guts to complain about the whopping 6.78-inch AMOLED display that's slapped on the Vivo X80 Pro. It's bright, it's poppy, you can actually make the colours even punchier if you like in the display settings, and you got a WQHD Plus resolution 3200 by 1440, an upgrade from the Full HD panel on the standard X70 Pro. Yes, the selfie cam orifice is unfortunately centrally positioned just like on Samsung smartphones. I personally prefer when it's wedged away in a corner a bit more out of the way, but it's quite dinky, it doesn't intrude too much on shiz when you go full view. As usual with OLED, you've got nice wide viewing angles, nice sharp contrast as well, nice deep blacks, and no problems with the automatic brightness so far either. And on the top brightness levels, the outdoor visibility absolutely fine. As I mentioned, you can actually boost the colours to make them even poppier and more jolly, basically. You can even change up the resolution if you want. In fact, it's stuck at 2400 by 1080 by default, so if you want to use the maximum resolution, you will have to manually boost that. And as the X80 Pro rocks a bit of LTPO tech, you've also got a dynamic refresh rate that scales all the way down from 1 Hz all the way up to 120 Hz. And like most of the flagship smartphones out there in 2022, you've got a stereo speaker setup here on the X80 Pro, but is it actually any good? Let's boost up the volume. Stroking the Mars Cat is kind of like stroking a toaster. Pro, the Mars Cat does not bring freshly caught semi-deceased wildlife into your home and then immediately lose interest. So yeah, not bad at all. On that top volume, you'll easily be able to hear what's going on when you're just kicking back with the video, not bothering with any headphones, even if you're in quite a noisy place. And it's not particularly tinny sound either, so again, absolutely fine for your YouTubes, your Netflix and everything. If you do want to listen to some music, well, unfortunately, there's no headphone jack, so it is Type-C headphones or dongles all the way. Although you do also have a bit of Bluetooth 5.2 support if you want to go wireless instead. Now, power and proceedings here on the Vivo X80 Pro is Qualcomm's beefy Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset. This is backed by 12 gigs of DDR5 RAM, so it was no real shock at all when Geekbench spaffed out these rather superb scores. Nor was it a surprise that I got a really good gaming experience out of the likes of Genshin Impact, even when I bumped up the detail levels to the highest graphics settings and the frame rate to 60 FPS. For the first sort of half hour or hour or so, there was the occasional little judder in the frame rates when the action got a little bit intense, but I found that actually improved over time. But if you do find you're having issues with any title out there, you can always slap it up from the basic bog standard balanced gaming mode to the way come and get some effort. And via that pull-out gaming menu, FunTouch OS offers up all of the usual gaming fare, including a good bit of notifications blocking and call blocking. You've got the likes of the Eagle Eye View enhancement feature, which can just change up the gamma, the contrast levels to make enemies easier to spot in dim conditions. Lots of clever stuff. And that slightly curved display I found was absolutely fine for gaming as well. You got 300 Hz touch response rate, so absolutely no delays between you poking and swiping the screen and things actually happening in the game. Found the sensitivity of the display was perfect for fast-paced action games as well. And the good news is that even when you're gaming all afternoon long on the likes of Genshin Impact, no worries as far as overheating goes because you've got a built-in vapor chamber and other cooling methods. So while the arse end of the Vivo X80 Pro did get a little bit toasty after lots and lots of Genshin Impact action, it never got to the point where my fingertips were singeing or the performance was throttling. Now, packed inside of that rather smart looking chassis is a 4700 mAh capacity battery, so that's bigger than the one found inside of the X70 Pro from last year. So far seems to be doing the job. The last couple of days of use I've been getting around 6 hours of screen on time. That includes a good bit of gaming, a good bit of media streaming and plenty of camera play as well. And if you do need to give the X80 Pro a quick top up at all, well, no worries, you've got support for 80 watt wired charging, so it will power back up again in a jiffy. You've also got 50 watt wireless charging as well, if you'd prefer to just stick it on your wireless charging pad at night when you get all tucked up with Teddy. And just as nippy is the connectivity as well. You got full 5G support, of course, courtesy of that Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Great news when you're out and about, and the Wi-Fi connectivity seems fantastic too, nice and nippy. Even absolute whoppers like Genshin Impact downloaded pretty damn smoothly here on my home Wi-Fi. So our time is almost at an end, kiddies, but let's finish up this Vivo X80 Pro unboxing with a squint at that rather beefy camera tech. It is a bit of a wide boy, the camera housing up here at the top end. That is because there are 4 separate lenses crammed in there as well as the flash and everything. Now, the primary shooter here on the X80 Pro is actually Samsung's fresh new 50 megapixel GNV sensor. I believe this is the first time it's been used. And it is a big old sensor as well, so sucks up lots of light, great for those low light conditions. And here's just a small selection of test photos that I snapped using the Vivo X80 Pro on its full auto mode. There's no manual tweaking or anything like that going on here. You've got impressive white balance and color accuracy in strong light and also in low light conditions as well. And when things get proper bright, the Zeiss T-Star coating on the lens helps to reduce flaring and other light-based f***ups, which is definitely a bonus. And when you're snapping in darker conditions, Vivo's fresh V1 Plus imaging chip, an upgrade over the previous V1 effort, helps to quickly process those night shots. You can even shoot better looking night video as well using the AI video enhancement feature, although this does top off at full HD resolution. You can't use that at 4K or 8K res. And the camera UI can be a little bit dense, a little bit confusing if you haven't used a Vivo phone before. You've got the likes of the Zeiss natural color mode up top, as well as the HDR settings. You've also got a separate AI mode, which can be toggled on or off to select a scene for you. Although this can be a little bit slow to kick into action anyway. So for instance, occasionally when it detects you're trying to shoot a person, it will suggest swapping to portrait mode. You're often better off just doing it manually yourself. And speaking of portraits, you do actually have a separate portrait sensor. It's a 12 megapixel Sony IMX663. And when you enter portrait mode, you've got full control over the actual bokeh style effect that happens in the background. And you've got the usual beauty modes and filters and everything if you want them. This turns out some pretty bloody good results overall, and the portrait shooter also now has that gimbal stabilisation, so it supports full-on night mode and can generally cope pretty well when you are moving and shooting at the same time. The stabilisation in general, very impressive here on the Vivo as usual. You can knock off the dedicated stabilisation feature here in the settings if you like. And there are still two more lenses to talk about here on the X80 Pro, one of them being the ultra wide angle shooter. It's a 48 megapixel effort, Sony IMX598. So again, you can get great looking ultra wide shots without much distortion around the edges and plenty of detail packed in. And if you want to get a little bit closer to the action, Vivo has also slapped on an 8 megapixel telephoto shooter. As you can see there, you can get up to 5 times hybrid zoom. This does actually max out at 60 times digital zoom, but of course, when you get all the way up to that sort of level, things start to get a little bit grainy. As for video, well, you can shoot at 4K resolution at 30 or 60 frames per second, otherwise bump it all the way up to 8K if you like. And again, got to say at that 8K resolution, the stability is pretty impressive stuff. All the same, I tend to keep it at the 4K level because I find that that is packing enough detail for sure, and you get all the benefits of the fast frame rate if you want a bit of that. And as an example of that AI video enhancement, here's some full HD footage that I shot at night without it. And then here's some footage shot with the AI video enhancement using that clever new chip. And then last up around front, you've got a 32 megapixel selfie shooter, which you can use to snap those Instagrammable shots. Shots very much not like this one. And again, here's some examples of some selfies that I snapped around the homestead, and some low light efforts as well. Again, came out really nice indeed. But if you want to shoot some video using that selfie cam, unfortunately the resolution does top off at full HD 1080p at 30 frames per second. There's no 4K option, certainly no 8K option. And that right there, in a delicious little nutshell, is the Vivo X80 Pro. One hell of a new flagship smartphone, packing some great performance, some fantastic battery life, some very flexible camera tech which can cope with pretty much anything you throw at it. So as long as you don't mind the likes of FunTouch OS, you're probably going to get on pretty well with it. Anywho, those are my thoughts. It'd be great to hear from you guys down in the comments below. Are you tempted by the Vivo X80 Pro? Hopefully slap full pricing and availability and everything down in the description as well, because I don't know it right now. It is pre-release. For more of the latest and greatest tech, please do plug subscribe, ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a bloody lovely rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.